He walked alone through the dark waters, blade in hand. Suddenly, the nine-headed serpent Hydra appeared. Without hesitation, he swung his blade at it. One head fell with each strike. Next, he traveled to the Arctic to challenge the Boar King who ruled that frozen land. They charged at each other at full speed. The Boar King thought he was going to meet him head-on, but Hercules was smarter than that. He leaped onto a nearby tree and the Boar King crashed straight into it. Hercules spun through the air and brought down his massive meteor hammer onto the beast. Still hungry for more, he made his way to the lair of the Lion King, the mightiest of all beasts. This lion was no easy opponent. Its hide was impenetrable to blades and arrows alike. The enraged beast lunged at him, but Hercules relied on his divine strength and tore its jaws apart with his bare hands. The reason he was so powerful was because he was Hercules, the illegitimate son of Zeus, king of the Greek gods, and a mortal woman. Being half god and half human, he could strangle serpents with his bare hands at just 2 years old. As an adult, he used his divine power to protect people from harm. He was beloved by the royal court and revered by countless citizens throughout the kingdom. He had 3 children and a devoted wife. Back then he was a man of success, but his success bred jealousy in the king. At a celebration banquet, the king drugged him and secretly unleashed wild wolves that killed his children and wife. When Hercules woke up, he saw his hands covered in blood. He thought he had gotten drunk and murdered his own family. The guilt consumed him and he could never forgive himself. The king used this as an excuse to banish Hercules from Athens forever. After that, he had no choice but to live as a bounty hunter, scraping by on blood money. One night, his nephew was strung up by pirates and was about to be tortured. Just as they lit the rope, Hercules appeared wearing the lion's head as his helmet. The pirate captain saw he was alone, so he sent 5 of his men to teach him a lesson. Hercules knocked them all down with a single swing of his hammer. Seeing this, the captain ordered all his pirates to attack him. But Hercules walked forward calmly because he wasn't alone. He had his executioner, Theseus, his archer, Talon, his sorcerer, Amphitryon, and his beast, James, beside him. In less than a minute, they had wiped out every pirate. His nephew was about to fall, so Hercules walked over and caught him. That night, they celebrated their victory when a princess from a distant kingdom suddenly approached Hercules. The princess urgently tells Hercules that her kingdom desperately needs his help. She explains that their own trusted men have betrayed them and turned against the kingdom. Because of this betrayal, war has spread everywhere, and innocent people are dying continuously. One of Hercules' companions, sitting beside him, says that they do not have much time to waste. However, he also makes it clear that they are willing to help only if they are paid a huge amount of money. The princess responds by saying that it would be an honor for them to fight in such an important battle. Hercules then explains that his group needs money to buy weapons and supplies for war. The princess assures them that her father, the king, is extremely wealthy and can reward them with as much gold as they desire. Being agreed, Hercules accompanies them to their kingdom. There stood a massive statue that belonged to Zeus's wife. The princess proudly tells Hercules that it had taken 5 years to complete the statue because the people of the kingdom never truly believed that Hercules was actually the son of Zeus. However, to the princess's young son, Hercules was nothing less than a living legend. The king then explains the terrible situation of the kingdom. He tells Hercules that their closest companion had betrayed them through deception, and ever since that betrayal, wars had spread throughout the entire kingdom. Because of this, they desperately needed Hercules' help to reclaim everything they had lost. The king further reveals that the enemy they were facing was no ordinary man. He was a powerful wizard, and according to him, no human could defeat such a being except a god. He also warns Hercules that the enemy's army included terrifying creatures known as centaurs. One of the girls traveling with Hercules asks where these creatures could be found. One of the king's men replies that nobody had ever actually seen them, nor did anyone know where they lived. People had only heard stories and rumors about them. Soon, Hercules and his companions begin training the king's army because the kingdom barely had any skilled warriors left. Hercules orders the soldiers to stand firm in a proper shield wall formation. While the soldiers hold their shields together, one of Hercules' companions suddenly charges toward them at full speed and smashes straight through the formation with ease. Seeing this, Hercules criticizes the soldiers harshly. He tells them that their shield wall is far too weak and that they would be completely destroyed in battle if they fought like that. Hercules continues training the army with great intensity. At the same time, news arrives that the enemy forces are already moving toward them for war. After hearing this, Hercules advises everyone to avoid battle if possible. He explains that once the war begins, nothing will remain left for either side. But the king refuses to listen. He insists that peace will only return to the kingdom once their enemies are completely wiped out. Later that night, the princess's young son secretly comes to meet Hercules. The child looks up to him with admiration and tells him that he wishes to grow up and become just like him one day. Moved by the boy's innocence, Hercules removes the locket from around his own neck and places it around the child's neck instead. Hercules softly tells him that he had originally wanted to give the locket to his own son, but now he wants the boy to keep it. The next day, everyone begins traveling toward the place where they are supposed to confront the enemy king. During the journey they come across horrifying sights, severed human heads hanging everywhere. The king explains that the enemy ruler had arrived there before them and slaughtered the innocent people only to spread fear throughout the land. Hercules then suggests that they should continue the rest of the journey on foot, and the group moves ahead carefully. But while examining the bodies, Hercules notices something strange. He realizes that these murders had not happened recently at all. The bodies were already many days old. He immediately understands that it was a trap designed to distract them and slow them down. Suddenly, tribespeople surround Hercules and his companions from every direction. Hercules is shocked because he realizes that the very people they were trying to protect are now attacking them instead. It is then revealed that the enemy king, using his dark wizard powers, had manipulated and controlled the minds of these tribespeople. Under the wizard's influence, the tribespeople violently attack Hercules and his companions, leading to a fierce battle. Hercules fights bravely and overpowers every attacker who comes against him. One after another, the tribespeople are defeated. After the battle ends, the king becomes deeply upset because most of his soldiers have already been wiped out. Hercules angrily reminds him that he had warned everyone earlier that this was not the right time for war. He says the army still needed far more training before facing such dangerous enemies. The king finally agrees with Hercules, realizing that he had acted too quickly. As time passes, Hercules slowly begins falling into depression. Night after night, he loses sleep and is haunted by terrifying nightmares. In his dreams, he sees visions of his dead family, along with a horrifying three-headed creature. One day, Hercules tells one of his companions that before arriving there, he had encountered a mysterious creature. According to Hercules, the creature acted as a messenger of the gods and delivered divine messages to humans. It also possessed the power to predict the future. Hercules explains that the creature had spoken specifically about him and warned that he would eventually have to complete his unfinished mission. Although the words disturb him deeply, Hercules tries not to think too much about the prophecy and chooses to ignore it for the moment. Eventually, they finally arrive at the enemy king's territory. At first, it appears as though Hercules' newly trained army will certainly lose the battle because the soldiers still lack proper combat experience and coordination. Their movements are imperfect and they struggle to fight like true warriors. Despite this, fortune remains on their side and somehow they manage to win the battle. During the chaos of the fight, the enemy king rides directly toward Hercules with the intention of killing him. But before the king can attack, Hercules swiftly pulls him down from his horse and completely overpowers him. Hercules captures the enemy ruler and drags him before the king in chains. However, instead of begging for mercy, the captured king boldly says, "You have imprisoned me for no reason. I was never the one who destroyed your kingdom." Hercules is confused by his words and asks him, "If you are innocent, then who is truly responsible for all of this?" The captured king replies, "Think carefully. The king for whom you are fighting claims to be powerful and righteous. Yet where is his own loyal army? If he is truly such a great ruler, why does he need your help to fight his battles?" He continues by saying that the king they are serving is not a righteous man at all. That night, a grand celebration takes place throughout the kingdom. The king is officially crowned after expanding his rule across many lands. Meanwhile, the captured enemy king remains chained up during the celebration, and everyone openly mocks and humiliates him. But unlike the others, the princess feels disturbed by what she sees. She begins to pity the captured ruler instead of hating him. Hercules notices her strange reaction and approaches her privately. He asks her why she seems so troubled and tells her she can reveal the truth to him without fear. The princess finally confesses everything. She explains that her husband was once the true king of the kingdom where the captive ruler had served loyally, but her own father poisoned her husband and forcefully seized the throne for himself. She then reveals that the imprisoned king had actually been her husband's most trusted companion. After learning about the betrayal, he rebelled against her father, which eventually led to the war. The princess tearfully tells Hercules that the captive king is innocent and was never truly their enemy. The real culprit behind all the suffering is her own father. However, she explains that she could never stand against her father because her little son remains under his control and supervision. Fearing for her child's safety, she begs Hercules to take her son away from the kingdom and raise him into a strong and honorable man like himself. At that moment, one of the king's trusted men arrives and informs Hercules that the king wishes to see him immediately. Hercules then goes to meet the ruler. The king warmly welcomes Hercules and tells him how pleased he is with the victory. He praises Hercules for turning an ordinary and weak army into a victorious force simply by teaching them the strategies and tactics of war. The king proudly declares that he is now more powerful than ever. He explains that the soldiers trained by Hercules will continue training others, allowing his military strength to grow endlessly. Over time, he plans to spread his rule across the entire world. The king then tells Hercules that he is the main reason behind this success and offers him a special position by his side as his most trusted man. But Hercules immediately refuses the offer. The king pretends not to care and responds coldly, saying that it does not matter to him. He tells Hercules that he will still reward him with gold for his services and that afterward he is free to leave the kingdom whenever he wishes. The king arrogantly adds that, as a ruler, he does not truly need men like Hercules beside him anyway. Later, Hercules and his companions prepare to leave after collecting their reward. But while walking through the village, Hercules notices the expressions of the ordinary people around him. The villagers appear deeply saddened by his departure because during his time there, Hercules had not only trained them for war but had also taught them courage, discipline, and a better way of living. The people had begun to respect and admire him greatly. Seeing their sorrow, Hercules suddenly stops. Without hesitation, he throws away his pouch filled with gold and loudly announces that he will remain there with the people instead of leaving, because the villagers still need him. One of his companions becomes frustrated and asks him what he is doing. He reminds Hercules that they have already received their payment in gold and should leave the kingdom immediately. However, the rest of Hercules' companions choose to stand beside him. One by one, they throw away their bags of gold as well and decide to remain with Hercules instead of abandoning the people. Only one companion refuses to stay. He keeps his gold and leaves the kingdom alone. After making their decision, Hercules and his companions head directly toward the king's chamber. But as soon as they arrive, the king's soldiers surround them from all sides. The princess and her young son are also present there. At that moment, one of the king's trusted men informs the king that his daughter had secretly requested Hercules to take her son away from the kingdom. Hearing this, the king becomes furious. He immediately grabs the princess's child away from her in anger. Without warning, the king's men attack Hercules. Hercules is overwhelmed during the ambush and loses consciousness. When he finally regains his senses, he realizes that he has been heavily chained and imprisoned. Soon after, another king arrives there, the ruler of the kingdom where Hercules had grown up and once served loyally. Hercules had fought countless battles for this man in the past and had always supported him faithfully. But now the terrible truth is revealed. That king had betrayed Hercules as well. He had secretly formed an alliance with the current ruler, promising that together they would conquer the entire world. The king had also brought with him 3 massive black wolves. Their terrifying howls sound exactly like the noises Hercules had heard in his nightmares for years. At that moment, Hercules suddenly realizes something horrifying. The same wolf-like howls echoed on the night when his wife and children were murdered. This revelation makes him understand that the king standing before him was actually responsible for the deaths of his family all along. Filled with rage, Hercules demands to know why he committed such a terrible act. The king coldly answers that he himself was supposed to be the true hero and ruler of the kingdom. But instead, the people admired Hercules more because of his bravery, adventures, and heroic deeds. The king explains that he could neither kill Hercules openly nor allow him to remain loved by the people. So he framed Hercules for the murders in order to turn the citizens against him and make the people support the king instead. Hearing this truth, Hercules becomes consumed with fury. But despite his anger, he is unable to move because of the heavy chains restraining him. Meanwhile, the evil king begins preparing to execute everyone one by one. Shockingly, the first person he decides to kill is his own daughter. Hercules watches helplessly in confusion and anger. At that moment, his companions begin encouraging him. They remind him that he cannot give up now and tell him that if he loses faith in himself, then all of them are doomed. Their words awaken Hercules' determination once again. Gathering all his strength, Hercules finally breaks the massive chains binding him and frees himself. The moment he escapes, he rushes toward the princess and rescues her before she can be killed. Immediately afterward, the 3 black wolves charge toward Hercules and attack him viciously. But Hercules fights them fearlessly and manages to kill all 3 wolves in an incredible battle. After defeating the beasts, Hercules frees his companions as well as the imprisoned king who had previously been considered their enemy. During the chaos, both evil kings attempt to escape. Somehow, Hercules manages to capture the king from the kingdom where he had grown up. Consumed by anger and pain, Hercules kills him in the exact same brutal manner in which his own family had been murdered. Afterward, Hercules and his companions head toward the palace. When they arrive, they see the corrupt king standing there with his remaining armed forces. On one side, one of the king's soldiers is holding a dagger against the neck of the princess's young son. The king orders the soldier to execute the child immediately. But suddenly, the companion who had earlier abandoned Hercules for gold returns unexpectedly. Without hesitation, he fires an arrow straight at the executioner and kills him, saving the little boy's life. At once, the king's army launches a full attack against Hercules and his companions. Hercules confronts them with incredible strength and courage. During the fierce battle, the companion who returned to save the child is mortally wounded and eventually dies from his injury. Soon afterward, the rest of the king's army advances toward Hercules and his men. But this time, the soldiers trained by Hercules successfully form an unbreakable shield wall. Unlike before, their formation is now powerful and disciplined. While fighting, Hercules notices the gigantic statue of Zeus's wife standing nearby. As the enemy forces continue advancing upward, Hercules pushes the enormous statue down upon them. The massive statue crashes into the battlefield, causing the enemy soldiers to panic and retreat in fear. Watching his forces fall apart, the king screams furiously and orders his men to kill Hercules at any cost. But before anything else can happen, the collapsing statue crushes the king to death. After witnessing the king's death and Hercules' unbelievable bravery, all the remaining soldiers and citizens kneel before him in respect. Even then, many people still remain uncertain whether Hercules is truly the son of Zeus or not, but in the end it no longer matters. Hercules earns a place above all others not because of divine blood, but because of his courage, strength, and fearless heart. He had always protected the innocent and cared deeply for ordinary people. Because of this, the people began admiring and respecting Hercules more than ever before. And with that, the story of Hercules comes to an end.